Welcome back to the British Accent Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about something that almost every English learner struggles with, but doesn't always talk about: negative self-talk.
Yeah, that little voice in your head that says, I'm not good at English, or I'll never be fluent, or why do I keep making stupid mistakes? It's rough. And it can really mess with your motivation.
Totally. I've been there. That voice used to follow me around every time I tried to speak another language. Even when I got something right, it would say, yeah, but it wasn't perfect. It's exhausting.
And the worst part is, the more you listen to that voice, the more it feels like the truth. It becomes your story. Your identity. Instead of, I'm learning English, you start believing, I'm bad at English.
Exactly. But here's the thing, that voice isn't the truth. It's a habit. It's something your brain learned to say, maybe from fear, or pressure, or past experiences. But it doesn't have to stay that way.
Right. Today, we're going to unpack where that negative self-talk comes from, and more importantly, how to respond to it in a way that's healthier, kinder, and more supportive of your growth.
Because your inner voice matters. What you say to yourself when no one's listening, that's what shapes your confidence. And your confidence is what gives you the courage to keep going, even when it's hard.
So if you've ever said things to yourself like, I sound stupid, or everyone speaks better than me, or I should have improved by now, this episode is for you.
We're going to walk with you through this. No judgment. No pressure. Just real talk about how to build a better relationship with yourself, as you keep learning English at your own pace.
You know, Emily, I think a lot of that negative self-talk comes from the pressure to be perfect. People think they have to speak like a native or not speak at all.
Yes. And the funny thing is, most native speakers don't speak perfectly either. We forget words, we pause, we make grammar mistakes, all the time. But English learners beat themselves up over every tiny slip.
And that perfectionism becomes a trap. You're so afraid of getting it wrong that you stop practicing. You start avoiding speaking. And the voice in your head grows louder. See? I told you you're not good at this.
Right? And the thing is, that voice usually started somewhere. Maybe it was a teacher who embarrassed you, or a classmate who laughed at your accent, or even just your own expectations being way too high.
Yeah, and most of the time, we don't even realize we're doing it. It's automatic. Like, someone asks you a question in English, and your first thought isn't the answer, it's, don't mess this up.
Totally. But here's something that helped me, giving that inner voice a name. Like, literally naming it something funny. Mine was called Perfectionist Polly. That way, when the voice popped up, I could say, thanks, Polly, but I've got this.
Ha ha, that's great. Mine was Doubtful Dave. And he loved telling me I wasn't ready. But when I started talking back to him, not in anger, but with humor or calm, his voice got smaller.
Exactly. It's not about fighting the voice. It's about changing the conversation. Like, instead of saying, I can't speak fluently, what if you said, I'm still learning, and I'm getting better every day?
That shift might sound small, but it's powerful. It turns your inner critic into your inner coach. Someone who says, yes, this is hard, but look at you, still trying.
And sometimes, all it takes is noticing it. Just pause and ask, would I say this to my best friend? Because most of us would never say to someone else what we say to ourselves.
Absolutely. We're often our own worst enemies, but we can also learn to be our own best supporters. It takes time, but every time you choose a kinder thought, you're rewiring your brain a little.
You know what's also helped some of my students? Writing down their negative thoughts, and then writing a kind response to each one. It's like having a conversation on paper between your fear and your courage.
Oh, that's a great one. Like, if someone writes, I'll never be fluent, they can respond with something like, fluency takes time, and I'm moving forward step by step. I don't have to be perfect, I just have to keep going.
Yes. And over time, those new responses can become your default thoughts. You start catching the old pattern and choosing a better one.
And that doesn't mean the negative voice disappears completely. It might still show up. But you've built a new voice beside it, a stronger, kinder one that says, I'm doing my best, and that's enough.
Exactly. And another tip: surround yourself with people who reflect that kindness back to you. Whether it's a teacher, a language partner, or even a podcast, anything that reminds you that you're not alone and you don't need to be perfect.
That's why community matters so much. When you hear other learners say, I make mistakes too, or I feel nervous too, it makes you realize it's not just you. You're not broken. You're human.
Sometimes, I think the real language we're all learning isn't just English, it's the language of compassion. Toward ourselves. Toward our own journey.
Yeah. Because once you start speaking to yourself with encouragement instead of judgment, learning becomes less scary. You start showing up more. Taking more chances. Laughing at your mistakes instead of hiding from them.
And honestly, that's what makes someone a strong learner. Not how fast they memorize grammar, but how gently they treat themselves when things don't go perfectly.
Exactly. Progress doesn't just come from practice. It comes from persistence. And it's hard to be persistent when you're constantly criticizing yourself.
So the next time you catch yourself thinking, I'm so bad at this, try pausing, just for a second, and saying, wait, what if I'm actually just learning, and that's totally okay.
And if you need help remembering that, well, that's why we're here.
Let's talk about something really simple that anyone listening can do, even today. Create a small list of phrases you can say to yourself when that negative voice shows up. Like a personal first aid kit for your mindset.
Oh, I like that, a kind of emotional toolbox. What would be in yours?
For me, it would be things like, mistakes mean I'm trying, or this is hard because I'm growing, not because I'm failing, and maybe even, fluency isn't the goal, connection is.
Those are so powerful. Mine would probably include, nobody gets it right the first time, and I'm proud of myself for not giving up. Also, English is a skill, not a reflection of my worth.
That last one is huge. So many people tie their language ability to their intelligence, or their value. But speaking slowly doesn't make you less smart. Having an accent doesn't make you less capable.
Totally. In fact, I'd argue that trying to express yourself in another language, despite the struggle, despite the fear, that takes more intelligence. More strength. More courage.
Yes. And you know what? Every time someone chooses to speak, even if they pause, even if they mess up, I see bravery. I see someone rewriting their story in real time.
It's such a beautiful thing to witness. And honestly, when you approach learning from a place of compassion instead of pressure, everything starts to feel different. You stop obsessing over the correct way to speak and start enjoying the act of communicating.
Right? And joy is such an underrated part of learning. When was the last time you celebrated just saying a full sentence in English? Or understood something in a movie without subtitles?
Yeah. Those are wins. And if we don't recognize them, we start believing we're not improving, when really, we're just not noticing how far we've come.
So maybe one of the best ways to quiet that inner critic is to turn up the volume on your progress. Look back. Notice the things that used to scare you and now feel easier.
That's real growth. And it deserves your attention. Even if it's slow. Especially if it's slow. Because that means it's deep. It's real. And it's yours.
And you know what else, Nick? I think a lot of people don't realize that changing your inner voice is also a skill. Just like vocabulary, just like pronunciation, it's something you practice.
Totally. It's not like you flip a switch and suddenly the negative voice disappears. No, it's more like, you notice it, you pause, and you respond differently. And then you do it again. And again.
Exactly. And the more you practice replacing harsh thoughts with helpful ones, the more automatic it becomes. Kindness, just like English, can become fluent too.
I love that. Kindness can become fluent. That's such a powerful sentence. And it's true. At first, it feels weird to say things like, I'm doing my best, when you're used to saying, I'm not good enough. But over time, it starts to feel natural.
And honestly, the more you start speaking to yourself with encouragement, the more confident you become in speaking to others. Because you're not fighting that constant voice saying, don't make a mistake.
Yeah. You free up all that energy that used to go into worry, and suddenly, you're actually present in the conversation. You're listening better. Responding more calmly. Taking your time. It's amazing what happens when fear isn't running the show.
And I just want to say this to anyone listening who might feel like, well, that sounds great, but I've had this voice in my head for years. We get it. Changing it won't happen overnight. But every time you choose a gentler thought, you're taking back your power.
That's right. It's not about deleting the past, it's about creating a different future, starting from today. Starting from one thought. One word. One moment where you say, hey. I'm proud of myself for not quitting.
That small moment of pride. That's how it starts. And the more you notice those moments, the louder your supportive inner voice gets. Until one day, it's not just a whisper, it's a voice that walks beside you while you speak, reminding you, you've got this.
That's the kind of voice every learner deserves to have. And the best part? You can build it yourself.
So, if there's one thing we hope you take away from today, it's this: your progress in English is important, but your peace of mind matters just as much.
Absolutely. You're not just learning a language, you're learning how to be kind to yourself in a process that's naturally full of ups and downs. And that kindness? That's what makes the journey sustainable.
Keep going. Keep practicing. But also, keep noticing your wins, no matter how small. You don't need to be perfect to be proud.
We're proud of you already, just for showing up. Just for listening. Just for caring enough about yourself to keep learning.
Thanks for being with us today. We'll be right here, cheering you on, every step of the way.
This is Nick.
And I'm Emily.
And you've been listening to the British Accent Podcast. See you next time.